engaged in other agencies. That is probably would give us the welcome rights.
Someone has disappeared. Why is it? What's the? It is sharing, but I don't know why.
Let's use it. How are you? I'm not the kid. But it's not moving on. Which exists to promote digital transparency and accountability, especially in the management and governance of natural resources, like we work with the inhabitants. So I don't know what anybody wants me to do. I usually I'll give it. I only see two organizations which introduction. Oh, let me go back to Botswana first. The reason why I made because this has been a journey. We have Botswana or a partnership with Youth for Tax Justice. What do you call it?
Youth for Tax Justice Network.
That's what I said. We have that partnership in principles also in the Western area of budgets. We also do what we call open budget review from Botswana, where we are the lead researchers. It's an 18-month research, which mainly measures three tenets of the budget. The first one being the transparency, the second one being public participation, and the third one and lastly with the oversight aspect of it, where you want to look at the role of the legislature, our parliamentarians, how much control do they have with the budget, and also working with our what the use of the Supreme Quality Institution, Office of the Host General, so we call them oversight institutions. So that's what we do. But today I'm particularly pleased to speak about it for two reasons. The first one is that we had this kind of engagement in February.
Yes,
February this year, and now we are back to validate what we did then to see if Kilauea captured what we discussed in that time and what are some of the actions that we said we would do and how far and then it. Secondly, the reason why I'm extremely content today is because the results, the open budgets are being launched today, especially looking at the sub-Saharan Africa, where we be gauging Botswana against its counterparts in the region. How is it faring? So the results have been under embargo for some time, but now they're going to be officially released, and we can be able to view them as of tomorrow or after the launch. Botswana has not been doing well. A second. To finally privilege our access even before they are released officially. I said we measure transparency, public participation, and oversight. Public participation, they got only 13%. 1,318 out of 100. So that tells you a lot that we don't have avenues to participate in our budget processes in all the budget cycles. That tells you that. And this is the right platform for us to say, what can we do? where do we create multiple avenues for public participation in our national budget? Okay, so I wanted to welcome only two people. They've been here before. John from Kampala, Uganda, representing the Youth for Textile Youth.
What text does this reference?
Yes, that's what I said. And then our two reps from EJ, from economic.
Just to let way. Oh, for
How could that is? But otherwise, the rest of us, because our is more high. We can just say welcome, but it was more high than high. And they were, I mean, but we're almost on a general. I will. Okay, and let's afford them the opportunity to be able to experience the Botswana hospitality that we are known for. They were about Gaborone by night, so what does it mean? So just in a nutshell, that's what's going to be happening. So very soon we'll be able to sit down and John find out how can we locally look at the recommendations which he managed from this. This is an 18-month study. 18 months. It's not the last year. 18 months. We normally just want to focus on the availability of budget documents. And when you say a particular budget document is available, you don't just say it. You need to be able to prove that that budget document is there. And most of the time, we look at about 8 of them. From formulation up to all the up to reporting. And currently, Botswana is experiencing a challenge of audits. In terms of there's not been the audit report has not been out. I think it's 2 or 3 financial years. That's a challenge. So we're talking about public resources. That's on the welcome side. So I can come in sometime. When I can't feel. She tells me I should say what the Honorable LP from Kamalete was supposed to be saying, who is a member of the PAC, and he's also been instrumental. But before I get that, the last engagement when we here, we were not listening down there, we tried to engage MPs, our legislatures, so that we hear from their perspective what's their view on the issue of the budget. And then last time, I think we managed to look in our review of them. We were the leader of opposition was in present, and then the MP one to win the support for Nari. We were voted that is later is the furniture, so they were here. One of the outcome which really makes me happy was one of the APs decided or suggested that they willing to champion the development of the budget act. As you all know, I think was one going to. So the absence of that particular act, I think it presents a gap in our fiscal space where citizens can able to engage in that. We note and we appreciate that the ministry are trying to make some strides in terms of engagement, but that engagement is not hinged on any piece of legislation. For example, budget bills normally do. But those budget bills, they tend to be just like a talk shows, because minister in office at that time is not obliged to do it. They are trying to expand that space in terms of they want to have those pictures really focused. For example, they will engage the youth, they will engage with the MPs, they will engage the general population. But that also needs to now go down to the ground where we need to consult different social sectors. Persons with disabilities, the hard to reach population, so that has to be now put down. But I think until and unless the civil society, we come up with those initiatives and then we present them with the Ministry of Finance, how they can be able to involve. We are still going to be here like 10, 15, 20 years to come. So that's the good part, that the least some MPs, they are also in for with us and are willing to work with us. So I'm reminded about this, which I just got like 2 seconds ago. And I don't want to read it verbatim. I will try to summarize it. If I misrepresent the MP, it's not me. So the blame will be, but all the applause will come to me. But you will have loved, according to him, we have loved to be here. Part and parcel of this validation process. The position data. That's a bit yes, so far by looked at Justice Network, but we put on our watch. Texting saying what I could. And then he also wanted to relay a warm greetings to the leader of opposition. He was supposed to be in here, but because of some prior arranged commitments, he could not be here. But Len is about especially that currently Parliament is in recess. And when Parliament is in recess, that's a time for MPs to do their constituency work. So, and the Parliament there but Mela, he applauds, the MP applauds the two organizations for putting this document. I'll use this way that he used. He says it's a revolutionary document. He says it's a revolutionary document, so he appreciates it. And I think his main concern currently Botswana is going through a constrained physical space, but especially from revenue generation, declining physical buffers, and then persistent unemployment. But according to him, these challenges they should stop progressive thinking. So these things in our we need to push hard and forward, especially looking at the how do you harness the dividends of young people for betterment of our country. Young people are not a side issue in our national development. They are the center of it. Youth are the present and the future of not just Botswana, but this entire continent. That one I will put it in good because I'm taking it as he wrote it. I found it to be very profound. The validation meeting matters because it gives formal recognition of the voices of young people who are too often consulted late or not at all. Unfortunately, the paper presents several strong recommendations, and according to the MPE, believes they deserve our full attention. And then he calls for the domestication of the standard model law on public finance management. Now we see the model law. with I'm not too sure. Maybe when she comes, she'll be able to put up to speed. There was one motion which was tabled in Parliament by one of the MPs calling for the domestication of the same instrument again, because Botswana is a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and by the bill, yes, that's what I was looking for. But so I think most of the challenge we sign in domestication. That's most of the challenge. Now, this paper also emphasizes something that is fundamental to us as legislators, that domestic resource mobilization is important and must be fair and efficient. We cannot continue to depend heavily on tax systems. Now somebody will ask, how is our tax regime in Botswana? Is it progressive or is it regressive? We have our tax policies are being porous to the extent that they will be able to facilitate leakages of limited public resources. The issue of tax is it's both political and technical. Because the same government gives tax holidays, tax incentives, tax breaks, and that on its own, in my view, anyway, I might not have empirical evidence to prove it, but in my view, I think it erodes our tax base in Botswana. It erodes our tax base. And then also there's this phenomenon, sorry to digress, there's this phenomenon called double taxation agreements, which Botswana has signed it with various jurisdictions. And as far as my memory serves me, well, the first DTA which was Botswana signed was in Sweden, with Sweden. And that was like in 1972. And ever since then, that has never been reviewed. It's never been reviewed, it's never been amended. So most of these multinational corporations, what they do is they do what is called tax shopping, security shopping, whatever they call it, where they find out how they can avoid paying tax, in short, or avoid it, whichever way. A key takeaway from this paper is that the meaningful public participation must become routine, not ceremonial, sentimental. It's not a ceremonial gesture. And then that he says we should also continue to advocate for various platforms for engagement. I will carry your message, which is that it is time for Parliament to internally ask questions. Well, that's according to the MP. The MPs, there's this phenomenon where the MPs they can reject the budget upon presentation by the Military Parliament. Constitutionally, according to the Constitution of Botswana, they do that, but that has never been activated. That is one piece of trust which has never been activated. They always act. So by a rubber stamp, they only rubber stamp. It is called date on arrival. It means that as soon as the minister presents the budget, the MPs they will say no, take that budget back to go with the it does not represent the interest of the citizens that you are representing. Okay, you didn't say that. We are merely approving budgets. Oh, okay, it's a cut question. Are we merely approving budget, or we are shaping a social contract that reflects the needs of citizens? Are we creating space for youth voices to influence decisions that affect their lives? That was the thing we were saying that they need to start to trust the question. So I think I wanted to conclude by the validation should not end with approval of the document. Validation should be the beginning of action. If we are serious about the Botswana where every young person can thrive, then we must fix the rules that govern how everything is raised and spent. Once again, a major congratulations to you all for the great milestone. From today, please consider me your ally. There is another proposal on the table. I think I'm not making it up this year. I think it is finished.
Yeah.
So the MPs, Triple B. So that was his speech, and thank you so much, and I really appreciate your attention. Yeah, level. Hula. You make me panic. What is wrong with you?
Thank you very much, Leonard Jackson. To me, when someone says they want to be an ally, it means they're making a commitment decision with us going forward. And we really appreciate it. I think for the longest time, civil society has been considered as anti-government. And it's really impressive and very progressive to see members of parliament willing to work with us. I think later on we will be joined by Honorable Soko. You might be aware that what is it called? The committee that sits in today. The parliamentary committee sits in today, and he's part of this. He has said he will pass by around about 11. Yes. So we really appreciate that we are able to work together as a collective. I will now be calling upon John Gaborone, John 2008, to set the tone of the meeting. More benefits of.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Yes.
Good morning, once again. My name is John Bako, and I'm a program manager at Digital Parliamentarians Network. Very happy that you've come this far from what actually we started last year. I think it was around June or July, if I remember well, where we spoke about, we had discussions around Modolo and how to domesticate it. And now we are moving into the conversation around the budgets, how people can participate in budgets, what's the budget looking like. And I'm very glad that we've come to this stage of validating the position paper that we developed early in the year. So once again, I'm very, very happy to see you. And I'm very much looking forward to the deliberations, particularly around the type of budget we want to see. I think from the very last time I was here, around early in the year, conversations around the budget shaping up. I think it was about the time when the minister was reading the budget. And of course, there was some concern that there was not so much involvement of the public when it comes to the budget. And I was actually very glad when I saw the budget speech of the minister committing to the tax pixels, which Robert spoke about. And I think that's a step in a good direction. But coming back to our validation here, as YTJ, we felt that we needed an advocacy document. For example, when we go to the tax pixel, the consultation, I'm pretty much sure the minister will ask, what do you want to see in the budget? And of course, you may want to see many things, but they all should be backed by some sort of some sort of oversight, some sort of a basis, because not everything that you want to see will be reflected in the budget. It has to be backed by sort of justification. And that's why we decided to come up with this document, which can help us as an advocacy tool in this budget cycle. So that when we go and meet the minister, we say, okay, we want to see MPC and in the budget. Because of this, we have the evidence, we have the justification, we have everything. So that is the whole idea behind this position paper that we are going to be. We at first thought it would be a people's budget, but I think we realized later that it would be very limited. But at the same time, we want to work with government very closely to ensure that we have the budget, national budget, effective with the needs of the young. So for me, I just want to call upon us as we go through this position paper. Think about your constituencies, where you're coming from, what are the challenges you're facing, especially the young people in the community. How can you help solve those challenges? The budget cycle, you can summarize it in terms of how resources are being raised by the government. Are they being raised in a fair manner? Are they being raised in a way that it's not suffocating young people's businesses, for example, or young people who are trying to survive here and there? You know, so how are resources being raised? I mean, there is taxation, of course, but there's also debt. I've been reading, I think, the minister in trying to raise more resources to relate, trying to diversify the income down from the country. But is this debt being acquired with interest, for example, from the young people? Because at the end of the day, it has to be paid back. And it's paid back with interest. So when we come to getting debt, which is not bad, but is it being raised in a manner that is satisfactory? Or are you aware that there's a debt which is being incurred by your country on your behalf? And then when we go to the next stage of allocation, and these resources, for example, the needs being allocated in areas which are important, especially for young people, which are important for the development of young people. Could be ICT, could be infrastructure, could be, you know, so as young people, are we involved in that allocation cycle as well? You know, if they raise the taxes that we pay, are they going to the areas where we deserve need attention for our economy to grow? So that probably we get rid of challenges, for example, unemployment and all that stuff. So when we get to the last type of bit, which is the utilization bit, when after the resources have been mobilized, they have been allocated. Now it goes back after utilization. Have they been utilized for the purpose of which they have been allocated? So as young people, we have to get involved in that cycle. And I want to call upon us as Ken will be taking us through this validation paper. I mean the position paper, sorry. We think about that, the allocation bit, the mobilization first of all, the allocation and the utilization. Is it happening in our villages? And then at the back of it all as well, we need to have the challenges that we are facing. How are the challenges in our communities solved by resources? Because again, the budget, what determines how money is raised by our countries, where it is allocated, it goes back. I mean, you can speak about the different sectors. It could be health, could be education, it could be ICT, it could be anything else. I mean, they all have cost implication. We all know that for these sectors to work best for us, there has to be a cost implication to it. And the cost implication we are speaking about is now this budget cycle. So again, I want us, as she's presenting, to think about that and make proposals. We have a draft here, but it's not final. That's why we have come back to you to see that we captured whatever we had a discussion about in February. So feel free in case there is something you feel needs to be added, suggest it. But again, as I said, let it be evidence-backed. Let it have some sort of justification and basis, so that when we go and present it to the minister, within circumstance and say, okay, we can consider this, not just rhetoric, not just pushing around narratives and all that. Let us try to have some sort of evidence. So for me, I think that would be it from me. Maybe having spoken about you for that justice network, I'll do so briefly. We are an African organization that aims at involving young people's voices in discussions around public finance management. We work, we are headquartered in Uganda. We also do work in Eastern and Southern Africa, Botswana particularly. We do some work in Kenya. We've done some work in different parts of the continent. So briefly, that is about us. If you want to learn more, we have a website. You just type in www.ytjn.org. We have social media platforms, and you'll just get up to speed with the work we do and how you can get in touch with that. So I don't want to waste a lot of time. Allow me to stop here. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, John. We are going to be breaking for tea. And then when we come back, then we are going to look at the key findings and recommendations with the belief that we have all gone through the position paper. So the presentation really would be about just preparing ourselves for the plenary. Yes, we can break for tea. Happy go with dream. Go on for Friday. Yes. Young woman be very well invited. Yeah, he sent it.
Don't you need a seat, huh? Don't you need a seat?
I'll get
Only four.
Hello.
Thank you. John, you will help me.
Yeah.
Okay, you can unmute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We are all back again. Right, so like I said, I am going to be presenting on the key findings and recommendations, which as I have mentioned, I believe that we have all gone through the position paper, right? So as we present, the idea is that it be the mic is off.
The mic. Lights on. Maybe
Which mic?
the volume.
The computer mic, or your speaking mic?
Yeah, you can keep it in the IC because it's only the camera. It's a position paper representing the discussion that's been having in our dialogue, right? So, John, why is it really important for us to be discussing a youth responsive budget? We can look at it in two ways. From the demographic point of view, we cannot like the population now has it's youthful. We are approximately 60%. So this ultimately translates to the fact that when key sectors like health, like education are well funded, young people become the biggest beneficiaries. And similarly, if those sectors are underfunded, we can agree with the government who are going to suffer the most. And that's why it's very imperative that as young people, we become the center of our national development agenda. So from the fiscal point of view, like the Minister of Finance would usually say, budget the markup. The budget is about power. Like I said, we get affected more than any other person. Youth unemployment has also skyrocketed. Apparently, it's over 30% of young people are unemployed. We also have a crisis. Yeah, you might be aware in the last parliament meeting, the debt ceiling was raised from 40% to 60%. Basically, what that means here is that the quality of finance, Rwanda as young people, we are going to be the ones who are suffering from that. And this is why we're saying we really deserve to be part of the decision making. Now, the key issues that were identified by yourselves during the pre-consultative meeting, budget information. How the Minister of Finance to share documents with us. Currently, Robert I'm not sure if this is the right word to use, but we have only 2 acts that governs the Minister of Finance around issues of budget. We have the Public Finance Management Act, which is currently under review. We also have the Public Audit Act. But being that as it may, none of these acts speaks to public participation as a mandatory mechanism. All literally takes people the citizens. It is really at the prerogative of the citizen minister to say, okay, we can talk to young people, we can talk to besides Ghana, we can talk to this certain group of people. But if in this like a eliciting with the movement, it is also within his right to say this time around we're not doing it. And you might also remember when those consultations were done at the end stage of the budget. That was, I think, a week before, and you wonder how progressive is that, right? With just the ticket box or ganja, right? And then the other issue that was identified was weak public participation. Now, when you look at the budget cycle, the next slide, when you look at the budget cycle, as we speak, they are working on a document called Public Strategic Paper. And I think it should be out next month or so, right? So during the budget preparation, the document is highly governed and decided, drafted by technocrats, right? They prepare it, they formulate it, and legislators, parliament, they also come at the end tail of the budget cycle. Someone like put in the budget and that's 3 months for the no one there there has never really been a point where members of parliament say, listen, I'm going to revise this budget because it does not represent the people. So that is one of the key issues, because ultimately we are taxpayers. That is our mandate. We also need to be involved, right, during the formulation stages. And then the other issue that was identified, next slide, youth contradiction. And I really want to throw it back to you guys. You know, our tax system relies heavily on indirect taxes. I get it. I think it's still in the last parliament sitting. What a whole is why the tax bills. How do you guys think that affects you and people? What does that mean?
A conservative.
Yeah, actually. Yes, that.
I think it's counterproductive because already we don't have, you can tax something that isn't monetized in the first place. So what is okay taxing? And that means even the little, well, if I'm looking at it from the littlest of points of, if it's collaboration content, let's say I happen to stumble upon a deal as a content creator, maybe with Mercedes Benz, I can possibly enjoy it, or even have a base start of how is it that I can then progress from there, because already I'm being shot from things saying, but I'm not even sustainable. So how does that work? And then another thing is you're monetizing something that I'm not even protected. I mean, you're taxing something that I'm not even protected on. Meaning, if there's something going on, if there's dispute that I would like to, raise against maybe this expense resulting on that payment or whatever, I don't have that, and yet you continue to charge me, or you continue to expect me to pay taxes. And so it's a very, I think it's a half and half. But then the other one that they mentioned, I think India, was that they wanted to increase the tax bracket, which I think it's basic everyday stuff in the sense of what you can't, know how percentage one I think maybe the generation before was different, but not how percentage one in the how about looking at that question which we look actually not question one. So it seems as though we have now adopted, or they're trying to expand the tax brackets, and that means that they'll fix the frameworks the way the cracks are played in terms of taxes. It's like, why not just fix the cracks first before you expand? Because it wouldn't make any sense. We wouldn't do that without imagining the word from the,
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Does anybody have any other thing? Yes, I think
it's so uncomfortable because we pay tax and in return the government is promising us a very good service delivery. And currently we are not getting back from our taxes.
Yeah.
And there is not even a slightest hope that we will really get through for our money. So if they bring in more taxes, it means we are like she's saying, and we are not protected every time when we want to raise our voices, and it's very painful. Yeah.
So that is true. Our board chair, Jason, once said, we cannot start blood out of the stone. We cannot do that. I mean, for the longest time, we have been having conversations about how big our revenue collections are. That could have been the starting point. Right. Yeah. So, oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
In terms of specifically to develop from the leadership perspective, Ghana the majority of our text is based on utility directors like that and we are in a society where it's heavily unequal, extremely unequal. And the people that bear the largest branch of that, this is, of your demographic description on the annual report, is young people, because they are disproportionately affected by employment and disproportionately affected by poverty, multidimensional types of poverty. So indirect taxes are universal. Taxes like that and taxes on consumption are universal. And they don't do anything to reduce the latent inequalities that we see in our society. And tax strategy was one of the most productive ways to balance the scales, again, especially if you set up progressive tax mechanisms. One of the ways to balance the scales for the people that are getting much more from our society can share with the people that are not getting enough to survive. So I think for me, that's one of the most very contradictions there, because you can simultaneously say that you prioritize young people, you prioritize their welfare, and then on the other end, tax them equally. Ghana takes you up Botswana, if I look at your monster, we can sort of what is that husband in so it's a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah. We will get back to that point. Yes. Okay, progressive taxes. What did I want to say? I think I lost my name, but I wanted to say something in regards to what you said.
You were saying something about the blockchain.
No, to what you said.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get back to it. Yes, I wanted to say, being that designate, we also are taxed in that manner. I don't know if you guys were listening to the Committee of Supply when the Minister of Youth and Gender was giving an update. She said that in the past financial year, her ministry only utilized 3% of the recurrent budget. 3%. Is it recurrent? Yes. 50% was utilized for the development budget. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as we also revise that, or as we validate the position paper later. Right, moving on. One of the key issues that was highlighted in the position paper, and I think relevantly has already touched on that, for the open budget survey, is to go on over the legislative arm, as well as the Supreme Audit Institution, provide very limited oversight during the budget process. But then I don't know whether it's limited or it's non-existent, rather than difficult. As far as I'm concerned, parliamenting, right? I don't know if even on public participation, I think even the last open budget survey, we scored 18. So basically, for the past 3 years, there's really been no mechanism in place to try to improve public participation. Right, now the recommendations, sometimes they need to domesticate the SADC model law on public finance management. So the SADC model law, I don't know how many of you have the documents, but it's a number and you can talk to me, I'll share it with you. It's somewhat of a large document, but I tried to extract a few points for it. it mandates meaningful public participation through the budget cycle. So that is to say, we have fully completed the strategy paper. What it is that because the should be somewhat in the room to give that insight again. The Southern Model Law on PFM also empowers members of parliament to exercise real oversight beyond just rather than being able to read and I think even on the last engagement we had, Honorable Sabo also spoke about it, right? The other thing that it does is it creates a legal mechanism and over it holds the executive accountable for deviations. Again, let's say maybe the minister has the who did some right? They need to account and it has to be legally binding, right? Maybe this recently the domestication of the Southern Model Law. In a year, it's more recent where I able to read some of furniture made up commitments. In fact, she didn't make a commitment. It's a recent emotion that the modern law should be domesticated. It has since been listed in the order paper. So we're hoping that it will be debated. Right. So kudos to us, we are making progress. And then the other recommendation, we only have 2 governing acts, the PFM Act and the Public Budget Act, right? So we need a comprehensive budget act. Because a comprehensive budget act, it's a budget. It's kind of nice to say the document be able to move ahead, right? Members of parliament should be in it, the public should be in it, right? The Budget Act will also enhance oversight through robust parliamentary committee powers and independent fiscal institutions. If I may ask, what happened to the interview surveillance PAC committee? Like what happened?
And we were hoping that people will be called to account
Right.
for what we had,
Right.
and nothing is happening, so it's business as usual.
Business as usual. You know what's the funny part? The case is fixing next month.
Oh, no.
Not next month, next week. Different faces, different questions, same policy. You see, because there's nothing that legally binds them, because it's not an independent fiscal institution. Yeah. Right. So it will also enhance oversight. Okay, I featured that one again. Yes. So it will happen in a kind of strength in domestic resource mobilization. Yes. They don't have what you call it, missions, most of them. Again, so what makes me able to be able to check if that in text or rights again. So one of the key issues that we need to be maybe it's high time we also have to decide that we new connection so that we reduce your limitation and now to be very and so I never realize it's gonna have a real text again. And I think Timothy has already spoken on progressive taxation. And I love how he also linked it with inequality again. The other thing that would probably assist strengthen our domestic resource mobilization, digital payments, just a cash-based transaction, right? Because they usually escape the tax net. Slide. So we need to look at institutionalizing meaningful participation mechanisms. I think this one we have already spoke about it. What we will explain how we work out public participation in Bahrain. I guess what I got with the public participation again, I'll get it. But I will be able to sort of learn because I would assume that consultation means that when I want to make it like that, we first have to talk about it together, right? We agree that we want to be in this together, right? But if I come to Horata and say, hey, Horata, come so you don't send them that consultation. Yeah, so yeah, so coming with one recommendation was that we really need to move from rhetoric to now a more substantive what? Substantive what? Thank you. The other recommendation, John, in area for the we need to look at strengthening our parliament on the sides, right? We really like PAC, as of now, it's just the committee that is broadcasted on TV. We get shocked by the amount of corruption that is happening in our country. We get shocked by how things are really not, how government is, right? And then from there, it's like we said, it's just business as usual. So the PAC also needs to be empowered. You know, they need to now move to checking the implementation of those audit findings. We have to now move to a point where they're going to be able to accountability accounts and permit. We will tell our analytics association which should be held accountable. Right. Another thing I think even when the changed government, one of the things that we talked highly about was how institutions like independence. The late Mozambique Gaborone, I'm the accounting officer. I account for myself. You know, so that is one of the many loopholes that we identified, and we think through this position paper, these are some of the things that, you know, can be done through our influence, right? Yes, I think that is the last slide. Yeah, look, it's the action. Me feeling her reaction. For her, Ghana, if you guys have been following the Tanzas, parliamentary point, there's Melanson about being as chairperson of the Standing Committee of Trade industry, finance, and investment, right? Maybe the most president is happening. The things that like PF, they establish a standing committee, it's a working group, that's part of that team. Mapule is the chairperson of that technical working group. Is the secretary of that team. Yeah, immediately we have with our respond to the position I have for regarding I need to get. I think you are fine. I want to come. Okay.
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Captain. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and join you over the next couple of days. I'm in particularly proud of the Justice Network, because really I feel like it's important for you to be integrated or included in discussions related to positive, especially because we're building leadership. We need younger people to also be part of the discussions. And especially when we're seeing the changes in the geopolitics that are having quite an impact on everything that is happening nationally. It impacts, for example, on how we develop our trade policies to be inclusive. And in particular, when I was reading the position paper, one of the things that I find that is missing is that okay, let me make a recommendations. Yeah, that's maybe you could include like more recommendations that ensure that the budget is gender responsive. And I did see the in terms of percentages across the position paper, but they're not specific. They're not statistics to say that if it's 70% of whatever it is that you're arguing against or for, you have to be specific in order for you to, get the necessary, what you call it? So that you can be able to measure. You're making a recommendation, but you need to also be able to also come back and then measure that they actually implemented whatever it is that you're recommending. But if you don't have those, the necessary statistics to say that when you're in relation to youth, X number of youth are unemployed. If you're just saying 70% of youth are unemployed, then there isn't a number that's attached to it. And then how many are female, how many are male? So I think you need to like find a way of when you're talking about your related statistics to be able to interrogate the data further, but include them in the requirements. And I'm very excited that the model law has been included in, in your position paper. I think one of the things that has been highlighted earlier on was the issue of corruption. I mean, the model law is not only to ensure that parliamentarians are able to, play their oversight a role, but it's also to also be able to address the issue of corruption, because one of the biggest problems that we have, like in the African region, especially in the southern region. And I'll go back again and touch on the impact of the changes in the geopolitics, where there's this tension between the US and China, where you should also be aware of what is happening globally, because it also impacts the manner in which African states are able to actually negotiate whatever they are negotiating. And it is one of it's an issue. It's one of the limitations that African states have in terms of negotiating to ensure that the needs of people on the ground are integrated in the negotiations. And what we're looking at how within the southern region, most African states are actually negotiating from a bilateral perspective and not multilateral. We're more because we're now protecting our sovereignty. It's our goods, our skills, our critical minerals, and therefore everything is more aligned to Zimbabwe negotiating on behalf of its own critical minerals. And it makes it quite difficult for other African states to actually engage in those discussions. So it's as usual, you should be aware of all these different elements. And the other models that is also important is the one on critical minerals, which is Africa is working with the Southern Parliamentary Forum to actually finalize and then to the table. So to be also important for you to link up with also that particular model law, because you can't look at issues related to trade without looking at them from an intersectional perspective, or whether it's finance, if you're talking about sustainable development finance. So those are some of the things that I thought that it would be great to look at, and also monitoring. It's great that you're already doing this work, but it is also good for you to be, to participate more in monitoring the implementation of the budgets. I don't know how it's done here in Botswana, but then in South Africa, you do have like independent development plan processes. So I'm not sure if here in Botswana, I don't know how, perhaps maybe you can make things like how do you become part and parcel of budget processes? Okay, so it's say you've got independent development plans, right? So every ward has an opportunity to participate, or participate in the processes. So the councillors then set up, your ward meetings, and then communities then come together, and then they then interrogate whatever budget plans are being put forward by government officials. So whether it's in relation to access to water, or putting, lights, security in that particular ward. So at the local level, then it's also still not easy, because then even after doing that, it's a process, because then people participate in the independent development plans, processes or consultative processes. But then if you don't come back and then you monitor, if the state say that they're going to implement X, Y, Z over a progressive meaning over 3 years, over 5 years, have they done that? How long have they done that? So it's such a lengthy process, and very much as young people to actually be involved in those kind of processes from a monitoring. When I'm talking monitoring, it's legal monitoring, not monitoring in evaluation. And in the legal monitoring aspect of things, we will monitor the implementation of these budgets from a local, from a provincial, from a national perspective. So I'll just stop there, because I get excited and I get so yes, thank you so much.
How long was it? So how do we appreciate? Okay, thank you so much, Mapuli. I think probably two centers of power. At local level and at central level. Districts, as we call them, your municipality, they do their own development plan. We find that the particular district they are doing national different development plan, 8 or 7. Nationally, we are at 12. National development plan 12. So normally we find that there's a bit of discrepancy between these two. We need to each time. The issue of participation cannot be ruled by ourselves. One, there is no piece of legislation which it's not enshrined in the constitution. So the government will develop these national development plans. They will write a letter to the civil society, invite you to the meeting, which is tomorrow. Today is what is Wednesday. They will invite you to meet which is tomorrow, the 4th of June. And then they will say we will consultant civil loyalty. So that's the problem. This thing is not most of the decisions are done at central level, and then they are cascaded down. And even if they do, I'll just give a pure transparent example, and I'll be selfish because I work in the area of statistics. A particular mine is based in area Okay, I'll think about it. I don't know why.
Sorry?
You want to vote? Who is going to the
Yeah, for one.
So, what is the east or west? How is it possible? How do you come to two places for one? That's the.
Oh,
Yeah.
airport.
So what it means is, that particular mine is being monitored from the central level. Like the Minister of Mines.
Can you make
Yet the mine is being.
Make it 1,000
Go.
to cover all that.
so that
So that particular locality, because I remember when I was consulting the local levels, my council and my parliament,
for that
there was one guy who
Maybe
asked me
might
a
wanna-
question, saying, do you have one?
Oh, you belong.
It needs to be like Dubai. And, so they are not empowered to monitor the activities of that particular mine. They will be paying back to the central government. I'm not sure if I asked the question. Good. I need to like what I had a problem. I need to confess. I won't see it. All right. Now I've been asked to sort of like facilitate the discussions based on what Kilebuki presented. So the modalities are unknown. But then I will make a neutral decision or suggestion that all we go through per recommendations. That's what I was suggesting. We go through per recommendations and see what is in there, and then honestly, how can it be built. But before John, let's go to that presentation again, and then we go to that. But what I really liked about what she said, to plug in
We'll go back to your presentation.
other platforms here. Hey, the presentation, that's just presenting. To plug in, piggyback in other activities that are happening at national level or at international level. For example, I think there's been a talk about the and the UN Tax Convention. UN Tax Convention, I see it's again, is it finished?
No.
John, how far, what is you will know? How far
It is-
discussions the convention?
The fifth session is coming up in August. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you position ourselves in that? Can I lead the OECD platform, say, some platforms at Africa level, and how do you flag in that? We don't exist in a vacuum. We would.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the, I think my main interest will be on the recommendations. And what has been recommended. Do you agree with that recommendation? Do we need to recast it? What is included in the recommendation? How do we build it up? Go to the, okay, this is about SADC model law. I'm not too sure if this one has been sufficiently covered, but in my view, I think this one more so that it's been going to an extra stages for parliament. I guess what is leading in this particular area. Now my first reaction will be public education on it. Yeah, from where I'm staying, including me, I don't know much about except listening to the presentations, having the document there, but how much can we, is it our idea? What can we do about this? What has been recommended? What is happening? How can we beat it up? Can we need? Are we going to 1 minute?
yes.
We will have up to one, so can we? Since now you're giving me a task, I'll give you an invoice from here. Now, can you jot down the roots?
Yes.
Emma.
I think one that I want to rather speak to is, because we're looking at text, There's a research that was made by the University of Birmingham, and so we're talking about improving text literacy and text morale in the young people. And I think
How model law?
Apple,
Model law.
not the modern law, I'm speaking.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. My text.
Is
Mm.
that we need to also do something of the kind. Right now, we're having conversations, and for example, because typically people who would now care about text, the people who actually are affected by text, chances are we're not involving the young people. Right now, we're making laws and we're trying to improve the system, and this is not the system that we're improving for ourselves. It's the system we're improving for even younger people. So I think there needs to be a comprehensive engagement for just the young people. What if they say empowering the more focus towards young people, like extremely young people, right? From junior level, primary level, because ideally we're trying to build habits, and by the time we're at this age, we've already adopted habits that are harder to break. So if we're trying to deal with the issues of text, accountability is not happening. By the age of 5 years, one says you cannot direction and young. So I think that's something we also need to look into. And then another aspect is, for example, she got me thinking when she talked about budget implementation.
Let's deal with this one. I think even up okay. Is it text?
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna jam. John, probably we might also need to learn from other countries nowadays, but their main concern is text literacy. How do we inculcate this text, especially from young age? There used to be a text debates.
Yes.
There used to be text debates. There used to be some essays at SADC level.
Yes.
Giving a topic, you know, especially but targeting primary, pre-primary school.
I was in
You know about it. So I wonder if you can come up with those initiatives, the tangible and the actionable. That's just what you said the trauma for me. Because it's nice to talk and to make sure we get our knowledge based on excited. So it's we need some key things in the text. Our team. So can you get into this? How do we then?
Yes, I want to give him the opportunity to shine.
Yes.
Yes,
You
to shine.
Well, I think to comment before I shine on what she's saying is, the that observation of not being so much literate when it comes to text issues. I think probably because I've served pretty much of my time in civil society organization than in a business community where I think I've worked in, though the heart still remains with social capitalism. So the problem now is the disconnect between civil society organizations and possibly creators that can implement on behalf of CSOs. It's very difficult actually, or it's not very possible, at least for me, when I say I want to do every board games for a living. So yes, when I do a board game and then I say, can we inculcate text education into our board games? First, when the first person you think of, or the first entity you think of is viewers, to say you already have a mechanism in public education in motion. But because I bring it, they are budget from year in, year out. There's a template that says newspaper, exhibitions, YouTube, and what. They can't even give you an audience to see what value you are bringing in. So to say we are living out innovative ways, which not only us as civil society organizations have, but other entities, either proprietary or in any other format, that we are not doing. So I ended up having to do this. How we met, I was telling you, like I ended up having to do a board game called Molahosi Lekato Edition. So Molahosi from a Setswana edition, Setswana saying that says Molahosi wa Ipan. So if Mola Sanzale one from a younger age, leveraging a board game because they play to have fun and learn at the same time, but having fun and catch them there. So that is one thing that we can actually do. The platform we have, even for the famous material that you have, what we do is we don't want to create a special edition for text. Rather, the one that everyone buys, let them also buy text literacy hidden in it. Because when they play, they will strive harder to know what it is, because the competitive element of the board games is at least get as much as you can. Yeah, so the board games are one of the ways in which you can now start teaching text from a younger age. Because like even the games that we do, we look at target audience. We simplify them or we make them advanced based on the audience we have. Trust me, our cards had pay, and this goes into corporate packages that we were giving. And you realize they will start having a conversation about pay after another person fails to get the clue. But they will get other issues. But pay is something that they subscribe to every month. Right? Yes. And secondly, would be, but I think it just matters on what I just said. It would be just now building networks and collaborating to projects with entities that can do that, and also look into ways that may not ordinarily be what we used to. Just even babes. Those are things that you could be having even at two. Because because that is cost from there. You give the full money topic to say there's a topic on how can the general tax support against. We give them time for study and then by the time the debate ends, the knowledge is impact. So yeah, I think that is my 2 cents, and my also availing myself to say from whatever I do, you can always put something at a subsidized price, at times at social price. Times at social price, depending on the need and the value proposition you're putting price. I think that I'm going to do what people now, we just about 10,000 games. 10,000 games, one game is utilized by at least 4 people to 100 people. Over so many times to take the different audiences of product. So it's something that I can say. I would charge viewers 25,000 and give you a product. Or something like that. But it's just very many. So I'm available for yeah, for material people is usually AC, and then it's a second edition that was it. So maybe if, for example, if it's
What's his name?
if you want to speak to content, then it means it can give you the language to the opportunity to get by the platform. Thank you.
Good stuff,
Yeah.
wonderful stuff. So we have an ally over there when we want the text, we come to you, board games.
Yes.
For those who are not familiar with our not context, if you are less listening our text capabilities at the SAS, about the component in our public education or public education. Anything else on the text?
I think John wants to say something.
John, shoot.
Yes, I just wanted to get, first of all, his name before I proceed. Oh, sorry. Titus.
It might be difficult for you.
So you said you work with, you have like an organization you work with.
Company members board games.
Okay. Okay.
That's a very innovative way, John.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is. It is.
Well,
I just wanted to share on how we do it in my country. Probably now in my country, it's more of the revenue authority doing the tax literacy. Uganda.
what about the
So it's mainly the revenue authority, and it is something we've been opposed to. I don't know how you're doing it here, but for us, it's something we've been opposed to. Because, of course, if it's the revenue teaching you about how to be compliant, and their target is to collect as much money from you, there is always a conflict of interest somewhere. They will not tell you everything. They will just ensure that they extract as much from you, which is to an extent unfair. But of course, also the other alternatives are mainly through CSOs providing legal aid. For example, for us, we try to help especially business people. That's why I like his idea that you can work with different stakeholders to do this, to provide this tax literacy. But then again, I think it also depends on your context. What works? I don't know whether the revenue authority would work for you guys. For us, it's working, but there's a lot of dissatisfaction. Or because what we've already suggested in my country is that you come up with a separate entity altogether with a strict mandate of just providing tax literacy, and it could be funded by government, but there should be some disconnect between it and government, because government, we all know, wants to get as much money from you. Most of the time, it may not care how you are going to, because taxation, we all talk about fairness. It has to be fair. In as much as we have to pay, it has to be fair. You have to pay what your fair share. You don't have to pay again. It shouldn't become a burden at the end of the day. So, and what we've seen in my country is that if it's the revenue authority, for them, their employees are assessed on how much revenue they bring in. So you can imagine what they will do to you if the runs were at the same time doing the tax literacy. It becomes kind of a challenge. So, but as I said, it depends on the context. I think you look at where you are and then you see if it works, it is something then we can go with. If not, then look for alternatives. But I like your idea about, yeah.
okay. Still on the same thing.
No,
Good. Let's do it.
okay, still on the same issue of taxes. From the faith-based organizations, supported by the Police Justice Network.
Right for you.
We have a tool, the highest tax justice tool. So it's a tool that
You have
to empower our
I want to note it down.
leaders.
Before you
And
forget.
for 2 years, we ran that campaign, and we realized that most of our leaders were not very comfortable with us discussing the issues of tax and the change, because they were of the idea that we are bringing in something that we see as political. And then the question was, if we are dealing with tax and church sees it as a political issue, then it means there is a lot of work that we need to do in terms of mindset change. So the Matthias tax justice tool is what we have in our faith-based organizations. So with the now the jurisdiction of the Senate model law, I think it will give more validation for our Matthias tax justice tool, because it will be now a national tool that we can all have access to.
Okay. I think that's going to take a lot of time to deconstruct the mindset of of our faith leaders, but there's not been need to give up. Let's continue. There is another innovation tool that we also might talk about it here. So we need more information of the entire text. Again, yes.
Oh,
Any last
So
one?
I share.
Well, go back to that.
the concept and the paper.
The issue of networking and partnership building beyond activity consists
You can't you share that?
village.
Yeah, the concept.
Emma, let's go back to
concept
your
is, I think, to the-
comment.
Oh,
Which one?
this one I shared you in WhatsApp. Yeah, it has a link to the position.
We have a
Practice that. So you're going to have something that we typically do. We do this thing, and I think it's in Africa, I don't know, maybe, but we create policies that always have secrets. Meaning, every so event, I'm just like, oh, I'm listening or recently we students, and psychology, sociology, and so many things that we talk about in sociology, so particularly
It's a bit easy. It's
yes.
the position.
For example, the reason why I talked about text education is because, or text literacy, is because unfortunately, when you don't have one central line, you don't get officially any of the things that I was talking. So henceforth, I talked about literacy from the and I was going to quote from this particular study that essentially the issue isn't always about the particular topics, but we don't understand why. And so, yeah, so because we don't have things that hold people accountable, they don't understand why they say we have to be in this discussion, things like this. So the problems that we're doing were actually perpetuating in the culture in the sense that this is us getting a paper, but we don't have a line of precedents to say how is it that operating each other accountable to ensure that this then mechanism there. And then we follow up is this sounds like a common project. Like it sounds like the strike that we had through TV and like they just said it'll take 2 weeks to come back to us. The group representatives of the parliament. So the state is talking with happening. And so many times this is we have lots of organization because we now it can be like things that
What's your then?
Just
okay.
I think that's something.
Okay. What's all prepared? I'm taking this issue of I don't know how to do it. Government, they will say they will respond to you in 7 days. Yes. But what did they say this charter is written and it's written. What you write the letter, you submit it. 14 days, 28 days, no feedback, no nothing. Because I've already come around. After 2 months, right now I've sent a letter to the National Speaker of Parliament last year. Around July. It's still updated. It's still anyway. John, can you get another recommendation?
Just
Before we
Robert.
now get into that stuff? Yes.
yes, I wanted us to conclude on that for tax literacy
Yeah, for text literacy.
because it's not here, so we want to include it.
Yes.
So I just wanted to get the forms in which we can build on it. For example, you talked about board games. Which other way can we suggest or recommend that government does this literacy? If we can build on that.
And whose responsibility?
Yes, to do it. So I don't know whether we can make suggestions and then we build on it and include it as well.
Is it? How do you kind it in short? How do you kind it?
Is there a recommendation to come?
Can you open the decision?
The
Is
real
it
one.
a recommendation to government?
I don't think it should be.
Ah,
Is it a recommendation to government or is it something else who can say you want to do?
Yeah.
Facility.
you want the real one? Eh?
Well, first,
So do we?
are you listening to me?
Yes.
I was going to say, it's actually at this rate, we might as well have a law for low living. Meaning that, to ensure that a law is done in policy, or you can have a law for policy making. Not for things, so that we ensure that policies are constructed in such a way that are actually actionable, implementable, and they have principles. And so, because policies differ, what you have is a comprehensive law that would ensure that any policy made under the sun can be actionable and it has principles. And then at this level, or whatever principle, it means that we need to ensure that that is facilitated. Because quite a lot of times we have fantastic policy development. We're very good at writing things, haven't come across a policy of ours, but we just don't have the action. So I know that there was.
So you're saying we recommend to have a law in place, if I'm getting you right, I hope, that can provide for issues around tax literacy.
No.
Yeah. Yes. Implementation.
Implement, not
Mm.
policies, meaning guidance in terms of, you're not gonna come here and say, oh, we're gonna buy overs for the school. And so how is that going to be, measured? This is what the law is going to require to be. For anything that you put forward, if you're going to set in one overs in our schools, what does that look like? What is the blueprint for it? How do we measure that indeed this is a quality overs? How do we say, or what kind of measures are put in place in case kids don't have overs in school?
Okay.
So ideally, what we're doing is we're putting, because we're talking about accountability here, and the issue there to being a left off. That's because we want to ensure that people are getting out, being put accountable, or that being held accountable. We want to have a law that actually ensures that these people are held accountable. So even you as a public servant, you can say, as per this law of implementation, you guys haven't done 1, 2, 3 according to your policy that you promised.
Okay.
Okay. I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. But after like it's a long-term recommendation. I get what you mean. And then I wish the MPs were here. There's a particular country, I won't mention its name. They are legislating that if a member of parliament lies, you oh yes, all right. So I get what you mean. We agree in that point. But I think it's a long-term recommendation, but we will keep shine.
Which is why I'm also saying, even at our level, that's something that we can implement. First, to say the idea is not to punish, the idea is to. So
yeah, it's to promote the culture of accountability.
So
Accountability.
that's something we can essentially.
Yeah. Okay, next one, John.
So do we go back
The next slide.
to recommendation?
I think under recommendations. I think we were on the.
So,
the
just-
second model.
Just one, are we adopting it as a recommendation to government or to, do we say, to civil society? I don't know, because I feel that either way, government also has a role to play in tax literacy. For example,
If I view that, it will be a call to government.
government.
It will be a call to government, yeah, where they, like he said, with beautiful policies gathering dust.
You
The
know,
devil is always on the implementation aspect of it.
yes.
So, and nobody's taking accountability. So
Okay,
that's
for
why I
it.
said understand. So maybe it should be a call to government.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I think,
Go to the next one. Next, we were at, well, were we here?
yes, now this is the real paper. The other one was the presentation.
Okay. I think this one has been sufficiently covered. During her presentation, mentioned the gap in our budget processes or the absence of budget act. Therefore, it will spell out how the minister of that day should conduct the budget. She gave an example of budget veto, but it depends on the minister, if she likes it or not, she can just scrap it out and do no consequences because it's not finished on anything. Like we said, this one has gone further. One MP said they will champion it. They will champion it. And I want to believe Youth for Tax Justice Network are ready to support. And from where I'm standing, the first support will just be to do scoping study, just to establish where this act is available. Is it a standalone act or is it embedded into the two acts that Gillian talked about? But anyway, let me leave it to you. I don't know what else is missing. How can we move forward? Maybe not too much. It's not a limit. But that act, what do we say about it?
Well, let me just throw a question relevant.
Please do here.
I'm
Why are
never
you doing it? Okay, sorry. I'm gonna put it.
gongwe hela ke botse gore ke rona ba ne re dumelana gore re tlhokana le budget act. If Honorable Ndaba was in the room today, a ba botsa gore at what stage of the budget act do you want to be involved? What would we say?
At what stage of
Of the budget cycle, sorry.
Process, yeah.
From January to December.
We would you say something about the expenditure and estimates, for example? The
Yes,
technical side of it.
yes, based on the reports the ministries are giving us, when they report, I don't know when March, April. And along the way, we get things like the government is going to borrow certain billions to do 1, 2, 3. And then they don't come back to us to say, we are borrowing this money for you at organization X. Is this really a priority for you as the people of the country for us to borrow money for this particular issue? So we want to be there throughout the process. Our members of parliament, the council, the tribal leadership, the village development committees. I think maybe that's why they are changing the way they screen people who get voted into positions at BGC. So that when civil society makes a push for progressive tools like this one, we have got people who understand the things, the way we want things to be done, not for our own benefits, but for the benefit of generations to come. So we want to be engaged at all stages. I don't know whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4 stages, but all those stages. We've got structures that can participate at stage number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
If the Minister Honorable of Finance was here, asked the same question, that's how she'll answer it. Are you happy?
Well, I'm not the minister.
Ask the Minister. Emma, I don't know.
One of the loopholes that we have in our country is lack of research. I'll give a typical example. When you're looking at the health budget, typically you would hope that the people know what is going on the ground, and therefore you can actually address what's on the ground. Part of the reason why I feel we had a shortage in medication is because I'm still bleeding. Yes. Let me cook. I said that.
You make fire quickly and get to the.
Yes, I was saying that we need a research-informed budget. For example, I was talking about the health system and how right now we had a shortage in medications. And we've been having a rise or a spike. I was having a conversation with a doctor in Sibilaha, and they were saying that we've been noticing that we have a rise in chronic illnesses. There's been these lifestyle diseases that have been occurring. But because we don't have the research for it, we don't know what it is that you're addressing in the first place. And yet people come to hospitals every single day to come and enter and give you free data on what it is that they'll read through. So things or issues such as those ones are not exactly adhered to. So we have paid our budget their health. We are only making estimates of things that you don't even know what you're addressing. So you find yourself with multiple, plenty new medication, and yet you don't have medication for blood sugar. So essentially I was going to say that you need to research for budget, especially when it comes to sectors that are more health, just about education, just about agriculture, just about competitive advantage. We need to know our competitive advantage. We don't have a research on that. So how are you making a budget? What's that easy to think?
Okay, so in a nutshell, because you I want us to focus our deliberations.
I think
What you are putting up is something which cuts across. So we need a research-based budgeting. I get you. Budget informed. But help us now, how do we find it? Help us enter, blah, 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 with enter. How do you find it? That's why I want us now to be more focused on it. This is what we should do. Hey.
I think to my case, yeah.
the comprehensive budget demanding the research-based budget.
I don't know when it will get. When it will get.
Can I have my own comment?
We actually like for the next budget act, one of its pillars.
Yes.
It gave a mandate for the budget in the research
Research.
Yes.
to generate empirical evidence for
Evidence.
all budget day.
Yeah.
Now, back in evidence. Yeah, your own point nearly.
Regarding the, and I'm not aware there's a broader, more comprehensive recommendation. Beyond this one in the budget, the position paper. Is there an extended version of this? Or this is guidance?
There is an extension. This is just meant for presentation.
That was just the presentation.
But there is
This is the position.
This is the position paper.
This is it, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so then what I was going to say about it, when we do put forward a recommendation, I think one, we need to ensure for the in line with current legislative reforms that are underway. We already are aware of the PFMA amendments and reforms in that area. And that affects what this will look like. So that what we're recommending is not already part of the one. Is not already in place. At a different platform, one of the things that we were told as civil societies is a concern by MPs globally. We don't inform ourselves about the efforts that they are making to address the challenges that we see. So I think since we're really aligning on we come down with this challenge but so that's the best thing. We need to ensure what is in with other simultaneously happening legislative reforms. The second thing is that maybe I missed it, but we also need to be very clear in terms of the scope in terms of the scope the budget act. How far do you want it to go? Do you want it to speak specifically to the national budget preparation at
You see how you which ones to pass what you see say you look about like that what the budget take you what I don't know what going on that
No much delay.
yeah
No much delay.
yes. But budget acting in research informed. We was yeah, well, it should be in the internal this ongoing reforms yes and speak to other existing institutions.
This is fair generally. I've moved it from 500 to 1. This is fair.
So
Please. So how much are we getting?
We want to budget give you those force, which is finding timelines, and transparency. Second, we need to define a clear scope. But the budget act, we have a 1 to 3 report from which we need to be shared because otherwise, the recommendation might what are we asking for in this context? But otherwise, in drafting, in implementation, it might be very different because politicians are very skilled at taking your words and doing what they want. So we need to be very clear on scope. That's why if you don't know, I really say, the guys are offline, or at least the rules are right.
I completely if possible you can rewrite recommendation. Okay.
It's a tie.
It's short again.
I'm going to basically brief what he's like. For example, when we talked about let me explain one. Here clearly defines roles, timelines, accountability, consequences of deviation. What we should be doing is saying, okay, as the minister, you will be presenting the budget speech on the 17th of February, and therefore we'd like you to, if he's talking about, in his speech, he's talking about the military or any new position to the military. What does that position look like, right? If we're saying that the role of the money is to look at maybe education, yeah, what you test the book, how do you test the book? This is me trying to break down and narrow it down to what is test the book, allowing security and teaching allowance since yeah, over time at most this is what we have. For Gaborone, this is what we're asking the minister to do in other ways.
I think you are now, what's the way?
And I'm misquoting.
You are, how we respond, but I think I'm unbundling it to the minute level. Yeah, when it's not, it's below the act. That will come if the act is accompanied by the regulations. Yeah, that's not another act. Or what like the regulations, they will keep their packers and things up on there. Anything else, or should you go now? It's all about anything on the Budget Act. Next slide, John.
Yeah.
Next slide, John. No, into the institutionalize meaning this one is a pain in the how do you say that? This issue of public participation is a elephant. Sonia, please help me. Hey. Sonia, the lady third, I am. Sonia, we are listening to you. So, we have tried using the process here, constitutional review. We have tried during the development of the national plan. We have tried during this budget, the budget process, OBS. I was at one point trying to develop the participation mechanism, how we expanded the scope. If you look at the Botswana participation near OBS, the actual level is involved with the just because they've got multiple areas of engagement along the way.
Suffering enough.
Ma?
Only one is suffering enough.
Yeah, okay, true. That one I agree with you. Maybe we are not suffering enough to feel the pain and toy and pickets and go to parliament with placards. Maybe we are suffering
Maybe I
enough.
should also give
We
it one
are
physical registration.
examining with the status anyway. Public participation? Let me take the legal approach to with you. Hey, how do Okay, please go ahead.
I'm done. Well, I get the sentiment of perhaps you're not struggling enough. The way I sort of understand and make sense of trying to think through how public participation is twofold. From the top down, we know this to be a global and universal thing where when we on the ground want to participate, and institutionalize these processes, government often just treat us as a tick box. And so how do we compel government to treat us as more than that and take us through the entire process? I don't know if we introduce more acts, more laws, but to be serious and demand for effective participation and being able to delineate and underscore what that means and how that looks like in practice, as opposed to, as you said earlier, the day before, hey guys, here's this forum tomorrow, and then they take it off, and then there's no real wheelbarrow effect after that. But at the same time, on the ground, I mean, a lot of the times
we are technical experts in a particular field. And when it comes to other conversations, we don't even understand the language and we find the language intimidating and the discussions intimidating. Yeah, I might know debt, tax, and static modern laws means absolutely nothing to me. So how much more people on the ground? And so there's a responsibility, whether it lies on civil society, it should lie on government, to think through how we effectively capacitate people, open up so that we don't have to speak for them, they speak for themselves. We just simmer down the knowledge and explain why these things matter and how it matters to them in their real life. So if you go to a normal average person and you say death, they're like, whoa, that's policy stuff. But if you explain to them why death matters and why they end up paying for it, or why tax is their problem, why something like the SADC law model matters for them and how it could change their life just in the community level. And so I think when we are able to break that barrier and sort of destroy that politics of language, there will be an appetite for participation because now it's like, oh, this is my problem and it matters to me and the next generation, my communities, my children. And now I don't need a campaign to come into my community and inspire an appetite for me to go and participate. I know it's my problem and now I will be in that space because I understand why it matters to me. So yeah, man, I mean, as people in the space, we also don't always understand these things. So needing to think of people on the ground who can find these discussions intimidating. But once we're able to break it down for them, we won't even need to speak for them. They speak for themselves. We just need to create and maintain the structures and the spaces like here for them to come, understand, and make sense of it.
Okay.
So how do we humanize these issues? I think
That's
that's,
a mouthful.
yeah.
Or I don't know why they say mouthful is not near food. It's weird. Yeah, it's two levels. But Mora, I think it's, someone said we need to think, how does public participation look like? Yes. Do you want public participation in which the government cannot do anything without the involvement of its citizens? Put up on it a must.
Yes, that's democracy.
Or do we want citizens to stand up and say government cannot do A, B, C, D? Like I said, it's two levels. But which one do we want? And how do you plan what you have said? Summarize it into what Greenville can write.
I think what I'm getting at is this is a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, top down, the government under the guise and guidance and mandates of democracy, it ought to take public participation a lot more serious. That is a tenet of democracy. It's not a take box. So at the end, when something passes as legislation or an act or whatever, the masses should be able to see their fingerprints to them. Bottom up approach is, what I'm saying is, we need to see for and remedy the fear behind not understanding these discussions, which are our issues, because people are disgruntled, but they just can't articulate themselves in the language that we are speaking here. So we just need to bridge the gap so that they can participate more because they are interested. Perhaps there's just fear, misunderstanding, and the politics of language, which works for the government because we don't understand. Don't see it as my problem, and I won't participate.
Okay.
So just one and the same double-edged sword, and so it's solving for both parts.
Got you. No, we
Yeah,
got the gist of it.
yes, she will also be part of the.
Oh, yeah, she's also part of this stuff. Timothy. Come participation again.
Yeah. So just a few things. I think in terms of the first one, I think at the level of at basic level, we need to make recommendations around access to budget information, right? So like very clearly simple things such as sign language interpretation of the budget speech when it's being made in Parliament. So Parliament does not currently have full-time sign language interpretation, right? Which means that if you are deaf, then Parliament is not sure for you, so you need to get serious and find the room. Says that. So access. So access in terms of including all people in our society, right? The Appropriation Act, the budget appropriation bill, even for it comes in the US gazetting, it's not made available in Braille. And I know I'm pretty still around the issue of access. I think that's the first thing. The second thing, the issue of feedback mechanism. So there is a gazetting period where the public is allowed to make submissions, but there's nothing compelling the government to respond to those submissions. I use the example, the Botswana Commission report. For all of its faults, I'm just going to pull out something specific, more or not. They enumerated all the submissions that came in by email. They said they came 10,000 emails, this many program meetings, this many. We don't see that when the budget, when we submit within the gazette period. For a The third thing, so feedback mechanism being the second section. The third thing, and I think this probably contributes very significantly to the 13% score that Liberty spoke about earlier, but it's also digital access to information. Ghana, when especially issues like the budget strategy paper and the process all the way until the final budget speech at the end. We're always, and I don't know if this happens to you as well, colleagues around me, but when these documents are ready, always asking for them like they're contraband. How now measure takes to home, as if it's contraband, as if it's not the same act that's going to explain how they're going to tax that. Yes, right. So I think digital access to the information brought to us is a third thing. The fourth thing, public participation is something that I'm very passionate about. The fourth thing is specifically around the parliamentary committees. I believe we should agitate towards, at least prior to the budget sitting in Parliament, we should agitate towards public hearings from different interest groups, submissions to the General Assembly, so that they are hearing from, because Ghana, they have different constituents. Like they have their geographic constituents, but there are also technical constituents who they need to account to as well. So let them go to the General Assembly items or to the portfolio specific to that, or prior to the committee of supply, Appropriation Act, to make submissions at that level. I think I'll stop there and then just say there are other groups around the country that are agitating very specifically to this. As you can hear, these are things that we thought about. So we are very willing to share, I think, all the information we have around this, and especially the mechanisms that we use to institutionalize meaningful public participation instead of the mechanism that is happening at present.
Public participation.
So yes.
Nah,
Yeah. So no.
yeah, already. People about their discrimination.
But no, I just wanted to sort of, I think also related to Timothy's earlier point. Or in the recommendation 2, we are enacting a comprehensive budget act. We have that in that budget act, public participation should be inculcated into the act again. And then in this recommendation of public participation, we list general public participation forums and mechanisms that can be used. So I do think from this list of public participation mechanisms, we need to then decide the ones that we want to be institutionalized in the form of being included in the participation aspect of the budget act. What are things like the youth advisory groups on budgets? That mechanism specifically, I think, would work well to be one that is in the budget act. Things like integrate budget literacy into civic education. Let that be mandated in the budget act. And then the other ones, then maybe we can talk about whether they become part of just the Ministry of Finance's public education drives or whatever. But I do think it's important that we sort of separate those mechanisms into the ones that go into the act and then the ones that either we recommend to go elsewhere or we let government decide how they want to enact them.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I was alluding, we keep mentioning, there's a lot that comes with the politics of, like she said, and I think we keep throwing this back to government and we already know what the government does. So I'm thinking, instead of us, would rather do, or they would rather do what needs to be done and then give them as simply to ensure that this goes through so that we're able to do what needs to be done. As favor, so that the country can be able to implement that. So can you, for example, when she talked about the language and that is the double-edged sword, maybe we can make it more of a personal independent thing, because for me that and everything basically just things into the in now Papayana.
What I said, that the ones that we decide to put into the budget act, the other ones still we need to make sure that we clarify where we want them to go or who we want them or how we want them to be done. Is that you get what I mean? It goes into the budget act and then we say this one, do it this way, this way, this way.
So yes, in public engagement in and she was talking about how, for example, working with speaking this language, people don't understand this language, but they're trying to. If you throw it back to the government, you will continue to do the confusion. Yes.
Okay. Hey, last one.
Yeah, last
To the
one.
next one.
And it relates to what you were saying. As we mandate in the act, or this is mandatory. The first part, public meetings at village and then or district level. I always lean a lot towards the village development committees because they are an entry point for a lot of issues. They affect us at grassroots level. So, for BDC role, you want to high level the feedback mechanisms and the meaningful public participation mechanisms. Those are the people that we really need to train so that they understand the language. They don't get lost along the process. So mandate for village development committees and other related stakeholders have to be trained in the people. Yeah, thank you.
La muka alipole sabu boka alipokisi na ka tsena mo mading. Go fana go tshwana le bolumi. Ana le bolumi. Yeah, keep it so. I think that's the idea. So what she's saying now, the challenge that Google might need to fix is the implementation. Yeah, but I'm going to implementation. But in short, I think it's part of a mechanism where public participation and engagement. I think the how part of it, the modalities, it will come at the later stage. I get it. Then BDC, that's a parliament, they are moved. The parliament, they are moved. Okay, next one, next slide. I think that one we are done with it.
Next, do we need a recommendation?
I think those ones are okay. You just have to look at what is available and then be what is there.
Okay.
But I think it's already been mentioned. I just want the recommendation 5. And somebody read recommendation 5. Ma, you know recommendation 5.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, bye.
Recommendation 5, prioritize investment in youth as a strategic economic priority.
Prioritize
Investment in youth as a strategic economic priority.
Let's talk to it. Somebody else here mentioned that we need to monetize social media content creators. Creation. We need to monetize that.
Apparently, the ministers to talks.
Yes.
Thank
No,
you.
that's-
It should
not be national.
Oh, yeah. There's something called a child within a child. Now,
Okay, why? No, I wasn't sure. They gave me example right here. Monetization. Because Ghana monetization is selling the NAP 19. 2019. And then I was 1963 more pushing what the national payment gateway that was recommended for 2019. It's been enacted again. So again, that's issue you're going to Botswana regarding trade facilitation in China. So it's been enacted. So in the case of what how how verified is that information? So we can confirm it before we mislead as a child. That's why they came for so that's what that was what.
So what's the verdict? Is it elected or not elected? If not, how far is the process?
I think the verdict is whatever the case is, there's no public information about it, which is, to the other points that we've been doing.
And what was that thing? What was it going to be called? Or if it's in Ibiswan?
I think it's I can't mention it's a certification or that also not an act.
It's on the act.
Regulation. That's why it can be done said whatever. But anyway, like I said,
How it's
I can
Emma.
Okay, so making after monetization, but then you have to make it and they have to vote drops, which is also something saying foreign things have said that which people texting is, but then of course sorry. You know what, let me gather my thought first.
That's okay.
That's okay, you are allowed.
Yeah, no, not because my brain is not focusing on what you were saying. I'm trying to, I remember seeing something, now I'm trying to recall where I found it, so I can share information.
Alright.
I was just going to comment on that I've understood that it's entirely dependent on how much we do digital purchases as Botswana. So most of the work that we do online is invalid in terms of it cannot be monetized because we are not using digital platforms or payments as often as we should. So Google is not going to listen to us. It's like some of Botswana who are using YouTube here, when they get to Google, they tell them that the views from Botswana are invalid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we're not using digitization online payments as often as we should.
That's interesting.
So,
So TikTok, YouTube.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
challenge.
so just to speak to that,
Yeah.
just to speak to that, the point here is the company needs to know how much it can get from,
Yes, sir.
it can extract from that domain. And the main hard to Ireland to pay in the digital economy. So we are not present. And if we are not present in the digital economy, then it means that we are then. So it's an issue. It becomes weird in that we become text because if Netflix is text, then it means that the subscription prices go up. So effectively, we are text for using Netflix, but then we don't make a contribution to that same economy. So the reason I'm saying this is, a lot of time there are going to come points that will cut across into other issues because, particularly on this, what's the recommendation again? Sorry. So the challenge then becomes that a young person lives in the digital domain, can't contribute much to it, but is extracted. Eh?
Yes.
The government like this. Yes. So it then suggests that we either directly or indirectly speak to the other domains. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, I get
Yeah.
it.
So that's the challenge that now I'm trying to reconcile in my head to say how do I speak directly to this without going around. Hey, yeah, yeah.
So it was we saw our own how dinner high might from that and form.
Okay, let me explain. Let me explain.
Then explain.
Uh,
What explain?
Dinner have post again. I do it as a content to go near the
Yes.
Obey the Facebook, Facebook again. One as I read this up on Facebook. Rabona, a very like evidently
Like in food.
like in full. How they like.
Yes.
Yes.
I know for there is a business model one. Able to take advantage of that following. But also, you must remember that because it's not an industry, the digital economy is not an industry. It's not industrialized yet. So there are no regulations to then say fair payment for someone like Tinga in Sija. That is why our creators would go to a country like South Africa. Because South Africans, so let me give you a very simple example. Botswana had a customer where I shopping. How I get some food in a give at the store. Botswana have a little bit to check. Wow, yes. Even if there is a platform to buy all the time. Yes. Botswana hit the Alibaba, AliExpress, I China, and that is what's killing us because there is no evidence. There's no evidence that we are present in the digital space. Okay, Botswana's GDP is this much, but in the digital space,
In fact, can you guys stop confusing me? Please, stop confusing me what you're talking about now trading in the space
Oh, let me give you.
and also and also content. Now, I think my meaning just for now would be content creation.
Yeah,
And how do you live off it?
yeah.
Our kids, to be honest, they are so addicted to this. Now, I think you made a very beautiful point that we are in that space, but we are not getting anything out of it. In terms of good content and then you get to watch for it. But we follow it, we watch it all.
Yes.
I get it. All right. Now, I think that's my meaning sense on how do we then trade around. All right. Where we will derive some income out of the tickers. Now that's confusing me. When they see I'm a good person. Everybody.
The bigger issue, also the bigger issue, which was being addressed in order to facilitate regulated basis for monetization. If you are platform solution having which have expired,
Yes, you send it there.
It's just possible to then transfer money from me to a remittance without doing the work on the shop. And here, this is not possible. And that is what a national due to the first. So now, unless I have cash.
So that was not possible.
So that was not possible. And this is why the monetization was not practical. Because there needed to be an intermediate, let's say this, which is why currently, so that's why e-commerce then then is not viable.
Yes.
Right? So the reason it's not viable is because even if I use the example of environment, right? Even if you decide upon that
Let me show you
environment as an informal sector player, Orange money magic or FNB. So I'm still with FNB in there. So Orange money or Bank of Botswana. Because then that's what would facilitate for us to reach that chance to actually without going through the commercial bank. And so those are the regulations that by the national payment fees we're referring to. Have they put on a The reason for that is one section, it facilitates e-commerce, and then the issue starts why Botswana can show you online. It's because the cost difference is too high. Yeah. That is the reason. That's the point. And then coming back to this issue of youth participation. In terms of the youth budgets, right? In terms of the making the budgets, I've been prioritizing this in the there's a Gaborone model report, one of the gentlemen from the minister. There's a presentation that should be in one of us and about the increase in national budgeting versus the same period decrease in budget allocation. I think we need to address that issue directly, or they as a demographic, right? Because Ghana issues are the affirmative action for young people are not budgeted for at the Ministry of Youth. So they are budgeted for at the different ministries. So I think to talk about decentralizing so that they can be monetized, right? So if we are saying we want 40% of procurement to go to the young people, the budget, that 40% budget from youth should be accessible from the Ministry of Youth by these other ministries. Because otherwise, so just that coordination, because what is currently happening, and I say this as a matter of the word, I don't put out the public guy 40% down. But what I think, when we put out the mind, whatever was happening in the Ministry of Youth, there are about so,
what do we centralize again?
Huh?
How do I?
When we put a coordination, then we are going to action. That's very specific to that. Right. So I gave the example here that procurements, quotas. The procurement quota is one of them. And other interventions like access, service accounts, which is, I think those specific budget lines should be accessible, or in some form with the Ministry of Youth, so that they can be monitored, because if how would that at a legislative level, and they, they say you don't have the jurisdiction to ask, when the Ministry of Youth does not supervise the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry of, whatever else.
Yeah.
The reason why
I'm going to print.
people promote the
Recently, this one has a problem. I can't use my laptop for that project.
we want to finalize this should be by
There's a form here which I want you to see.
by tomorrow, Thursday. So that Friday, take it for print. And next week, it's shared with the Minister of Finance. So that will help people to write, to talk to finalize it. And then, that's what the commanders will find or put the recommendation in the job. If to be finalized by tomorrow. Friday we take opportunity. And Monday we start to share between various stakeholders including themselves. So more to this. Anybody who wants to have input on this, or who have any violent objection with the recommendation, you want to be taken out, we feel something is being left out. I don't would you keep. Matt?
Yes.
This is what I should be like, you will Emma. That who? Emma.
How?
It's
here.
ensure consistent medication supply. How do you ensure consistent medication supply? Research.
Okay.
Go on handing people are asking.
That a research-based budgeting.
For this one to be what we can do is the funding. Things like, for example, when I think about social media, the same concept applies for, okay, each employee box, but I'll be very quick. So at the corner of Botswana, there's a place that used to catch on fire repeatedly. And one of the things that would happen is that Mafia would come and get information on that particular thing, and then they'll take that information, carbon dating. And so when you want that information, you would want, much like with you, how much information you have to pay millions just to rent that data, but data gathering. So things like now we have ChatGPT, you have your open AIs, your Gemini's, and they use LLMs. LLMs, we are the ones who are trained these LLMs. In these everyday interaction with these platforms, that's our information. And because we don't have control, like for example, there's certain elements of that are not putting across accordingly because they are not living the reality, they're just reportation, quote unquote, analyzing. So, in the spirit of trying to move our country forward, we need to find a way of interacting with putting such things with AI, knowledge, informating and protecting. And
What I do, I like it. Are you ready with pen?
I'm ready to write.
What I do, I like.
thanks.
I go on.
I wanted her to put it across as it's not the only thing. Remember when you talked about social behavior, we were talking about how there is certain barriers that are in place. And I was saying to you, with AI, and because now they want to be quote unquote an AI education, whatnot, that's what they're trying to push for. Indicates that there needs to be protection as well, or there needs to be governance as well for AI platforms. Is People are carbon dating. Part of that, can you give an example in for carbon dating law? Every making package of highly protected. I want you to give you an example that there's a need for such to be protected as well. To say under digital engagement, the
Digital engagement. Is it under the same investment?
Basically, digital engagement then to work on guy.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I can remember.
A recommendation for yes,
Digital engagement is number 4.
yes. I've already get the first one to submit.
I'm not, the challenge.
We can make our own. The problem is that we're always waiting for other people to do it. We can create our own LLMs, and that there should be regulations to say we're not going to have another independent thingy come here and we can LLM.
Timothy, do you get the point?
I guess.
Do you get the point?
Invest in the youth.
I think
You see,
He's trying to.
error.
I don't.
In a nutshell, like
I think it's investing in leading in the digital space rather than just following not non-context sensitive platforms.
okay. Okay, no, I don't think it's there, John, but it's part and parcel of leveraging on the digital
Platforms. Don't it cut across?
Yeah, I can be a cost-cutting.
Cost-cutting issue. Yeah.
Can you go to the next recommendation, please? I think now my time is gone. How many we have? We have 8 there.
Recommendation.
8 recommendations.
Another. I think some of them have been spoken about. Access. That has been spoken about. I think even this.
Oh no, the oversight institution. Okay, let's go to that one. We'll take a 2 minute, 3 minutes per recommendation.
Which one?
Here.
The 6th one. Yes, 6. So strengthen parliamentary oversight of the party. So
Well, just a small one. I agree at the time we were hoping the current survey score was 2023. So with this one round, we need to add it to put the 59 over 100.
okay.
59.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just update because we have the details already.
Yes, yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. Okay. Anyway. How do we ensure that the parliamentarians they provide a good oversight of the budget?
We generally receive the budget at the same time as our second parliament. Actually, so I think you can add a recommendation for parliament as the overall, so to be given the budget a bit earlier. I think that also contributes towards their capacity to interrogate and share it with their constituents.
Yes.
So maybe a specific deadline for it to be and for it to be considered in the level. That means changing of the level also. So I don't know how you feel.
I hear you, but here's my difficulty. I hear you, but yeah, it's true they do receive it, but anyway, another tables of estimate. But the receive November, December. But the just table of estimate of the but other information where they keep the same time. It becomes difficult to recommend for by because we have our operational, but because that comes with operations. Some people are I think who oversight ya di-parliament ba di ka beilwa ke mang. Who police the police. So that my difficulty, I understand what you mean, but my difficulty is operational. When should we receive the budget information? Unless if it was in Friday morning.
I think consider the standing is going to be the same level of production assignment as the new act of parliament. And I think it can be put amending the standing orders would be dramatically easier than the constitution. So I think that one there would be the, and my thoughts at least were that through the parliamentary business committee, a submission to that effect could see the light of day because it does have an opposition majority which will allow for to hear it.
Uncle, let's pack that one. We'll take it up either with the P, but members of the PAC or OPC, business, parliament. How can we deal with that one?
Maybe Robert, just to add on that, because for us, the law, it's actually in the law. It mandates that our government has to table the estimates or even the budget statement first around Feb, because for us, our budget is ready in June. So usually around Feb, end of January, Feb, there should be estimates on the floor of Parliament so that Parliament debates. Some of them are even referred to the committees, the budget committee. So I think probably it is also something we could recommend that it is put as part of the law, because at least I know in our case, it is part of the law. Yeah.
It's not well.
It's not
part of the law. But what I'm saying is that they receive those tables of estimates before the December break. But the thing is, they're not debated.
Oh, they are not debated on the floor. Okay.
They just receive them and they go. And then they will meet the budget on the first Monday of February. That's when they meet the budget speech. But the problem, they are not debated.
They are not debated.
No, that's the difference.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Because what he's recommending is something operational.
Yeah.
So we need to engage with either the members of the people who are in the PAC that you work with. She's spoken about this Mabel, the MP was supposed to be here, and then who else in PAC?
The chairperson is Lucas.
Okay, no, before, yeah, we can say Lucas or see members that we work with. B.
Those that we have worked with.
Yeah, that we are working with. B. But you get my point.
Yeah, I get the point.
Yes. Okay, anything else? I don't know, I think, is this one okay? Yeah, ensure supreme audit, full operational independence and adequate resources. Does it fall under parliament?
Is it?
Does it fall here? Because this was talking about
Parliament
oversight. Or we've misplaced it.
Because
It falls.
Isn't Auditor General employed by an act of parliament?
Exactly.
No. No, he's employed by the sitting head of state.
It's not empowered.
Yeah.
As in the office of the Auditor General, is it empowered by an act of parliament?
Okay, can you explain that? Can you explain that to me?
Okay. My point is, if there is an act, you are Auditor General.
Yes, yes.
It is.
Yes.
My thing is, I understand why you feel it to be misplaced, but maybe because it would still be for Parliament to approve that that empowerment or that independence. It might not be too.
You were saying.
Yeah. You can
Sometimes you are.
Let me forward this guy also. I'm telling him to.
Around.
This is the other form, but now the
Okay.
it's not.
Strengthen parliamentary.
You think that guys can edit for you so that it's, this is supposed to be one
Yeah,
page.
this income
I'm
part.
seeing it's cutting
I get-
across 2 pages.
Yeah, this income.
Yeah.
Can you just to come to his point? Head of science. Who are committing? The head of. Meter, you know, commenting.
Yeah, it's okay. So let me share with. Let me send it.
One point to a key issue,
Yes.
Exactly.
and it's constitutional.
Yes.
I think it's 119.
Yes. Yeah.
The constitution. Now, over the challenge that they are facing. After you get appointed, you can now appoint staff around. Two, the type of audit they can engage in. Havana data on the audit that you told.
Okay.
Okay. Currently, I'm trying to amend. I'm trying to amend the act. And one of the sticking points is the independence of audit general. Unless and until we detach it from that elements like DCEC that are trying to that's when we talk about independence. But anyway, I think good suggestion. Probably instead of saying parliament, maybe is oversight institutions. Let's say
We say parliamentary what?
oversight.
Strengthen institutions.
And then probably we'll talk about
Institution.
strategic institutions for the
Okay.
purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, but then we'll be looking at those specifically, looking at the budget process. Okay, let's go to the number 7. Number 7, John. Then you want to number 8.
Oh, that was a mistake, I think.
Okay, that's okay. Then that's fine. Then there's no 7.
There's not. Oh, it's here.
Okay,
Sorry.
7 is there. What does it talk about? Ensure accessible budget information. I think this one has been talked about.
Yeah.
The platforms, because access also is also to be timely, multi.
Breaking down of information.
Either infographics, breaking down, putting access as a whole. We used not to have access to Information Act, so it's now in place. For the longest time,
It's in place.
yes, it's in place. That one I can guarantee, but I have it. Access to Information Act is in place. Remind me from here.
Why not to challenge?
Yeah.
It's also.
It also. Come at 5. So they say come at 5 o'clock. Come at 5. So getting information from government was like squeezing water out of stone. There are 3 layers of impediments. 1, the absence of the act. 2, the NDAs that the public officers sign when they assume their position. And the third one, the issues of just no complacency around to help us, so it's in place. So are you okay with this? Says.
Yeah.
Access to information. Let's see.
Maybe we shall also quote the act you're saying is in place.
Which one? Yeah, no,
Refer to
it. The access to information,
Uh,
At 16 of February.
you are telling them, what act is it?
Yes, it's at 16 of.
16 of 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
the
it's-
title of the act.
So just to be sure, it has like a provision to which mandates government to provide information, like access to information.
I
The
have
act.
a good question. Because
Uh.
in America, you can ask the shoe size of the president. But I don't know how far, how far they ask information here, so we might have to deep dive to find out how far.
Or maybe public information specifically.
Because, for example, the Companies Act, Companies Act, there we can get to SIPA and say, I want to know that a particular company A. But when you do that, they say, right, that's the doing right thing.
Yes.
But some they say doing right thing to justify why you need that. Yes, that's after that before. You want to a particular company, or about people, even if you don't find it online. Visualize, use the anxiety, explain why you need that to be cheap. Okay. Anyway. Anything else? Or let's go to 8. Wait. What? That act is there. What does 8 talk about? Strengthening collaboration among youth and civil society. I have no idea what that is. I have absolutely no idea. Can someone break down for me? That one for me. Secretary, can you help me with that? Participants, they emphasized a strong, unified voice. I want you to use this youth voice.
Yeah, I think it's about
Call to action.
working together, basically. Civil society, youth actors. Yeah. For these reforms around PFM.
In short. So anything there, anything glaring, anything that you need to take out, anything that you need to keep, anything that you need to add, amend. I like the fact that everybody now in their laptops. The concentration level now is going out. It's lunch, we are not nearing that time. At least it's pretty warm. Lunch is finished. Serious. Oh, it's you.
Ma.
You. Who have been cooking us? What is wrong with you? Oh. Emma. All right. Emma.
And that's again, yeah, we look up full resources and technical capacity for research area. I think there also needs a kind of like when you mentorship, or it's not a typical mentorship, but maybe a fellowship or during text, yeah, now we you know how like you have a full Harvard fellowship and all of that. We could have a similar thing, but based towards the budgets, text and the likes.
Fellowship, mentorship. The third one.
Mentorship meetings.
Meeting.
Fellowship.
Mentorship is the.
Mentorship is the for the fellowship sort of. You know how so that you have. I was giving an example of this is called Harvard Institute of Business area. What they would do is, for example, a fellowship, you go on the first stream of cohort, then you go and learn, and then people are continuously teaching each other. So information is generational and not just like
Okay. Noted.
And yeah, even exchange program is something, anything at this point. I don't just anything.
Exchange programs.
Exchange programs, like, you know how we talked about Uganda, we could do similar thing. Uganda come here and learn, we could go learn.
For cross fertilization of ideas.
Cross pollination.
Oh, okay. Yes, cross the difference is the same. The difference is the same. All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else? Going once? Going twice?
The multi-state organizations become more.
D?
It's organizational, bodies become more.
Can you explain it to me?
Just about bridging the gap and that, I think it's just.
No, nice. Okay, Emma.
I think something, I can make it like a something. You got that? Oh, yes, just, no, maybe have like a multinational or different organizations that are their representation. And so engaging them. So, but about engage for more engage. Even as for one of engage means even my youth about action if I engage.
Okay.
Group participation during multi-organizational.
Okay. Then gone. Next one, John. No, the other recommendations. I think they're about.
It's
We
nine.
have, yeah, we have 9. Build technical capacity for budget analysis amongst young people. I have absolutely no idea on how.
I think this falls in line with the literacy we've been speaking about. Budget literacy.
Now, I need to ask this question, and it's a very question, and please excuse me for that. Are young people interested in budget issues?
So.
Or how can we move them into the conversation? I want an honest opinion on this one. Emma.
There's a very specific demographic of people who are interested in and youth coming truly. The idea is that what is something you have to be interested in? What if you're making it interesting and unfavorable?
Okay.
So these long
It's not about interested. If you make budget work interesting, they will follow it.
is
Huh.
like for example, I was looking at something saying you were saying we used to make it looking at PhD. Like you'd have files and stuff like this. And all these files, imagine for a while we developed to get to the end. And then I think how we have for South Africa. We can do something. I think it's exclusive that is we can actually put something in there. So by the time more was on the weekend, by the time I'm we lost interest beforehand. Because also in that you make things by exclusion, like exclude in the way of your processes. You're basically excluding things.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking, we're going to borrow her words. If we take the Minister of Finance here, and so that he can make the budget presentation interesting to the youth, young people, how would we recommend him to make it sexy?
So on the previous one, he had this whole long speech, very unnecessary. Well, that's very unnecessary because we want to know from like that I finds out all time. The same way you have a receipt to say, okay, this is where the money is coming from. Or for one hand, okay, this is what money, how much money we have. This is what we want the money to be doing. This is where it's going specifically. So I'm going to tell you there's a lot.
Macroeconomic.
What happens at the I don't like an abridged version, but a specific version that addresses the specificity of what the budget is supposed to be about. And it was too long. No, it's too long because they don't know. It's too long because they don't know what they're doing. No.
Okay, it was different content.
No, let me take it my way. They're beating around the bush. But that's into the real, the direct, that don't be direct, that's not a police happen. They need to prioritize. For example, you can't have a speech. There are 60 pages of slides. What's that? Am I just Okay, so
I've asked a very simple question, but very late. It's not, do we agree with notional youth? It's not that I'm not interested. We are not making it interesting. That's what she said. Now, I said, what did the Minister of Finance? Every Minister of Finance, I'm going to make my budget speech. How do I make what I'm budget speech appeal to you? That's what I want to know.
Okay, Mr. Minister of
Finance. Yes.
Please focus on 5 priorities. Create 5 priorities. Education, energy or minerals, health, just 5 of them. And then break it by section, right? So for these 5 priority areas, you're going to take the first, which is education. You're going to tell us what it is that you're looking to implement. That's boring. If it's curriculum, if you're fixing curriculum, say fixing curriculum, what exactly are you fixing? If it's information about AI, incorporating AI, then incorporate AI. How? Well, incorporate AI in teaching skills by involving 1, 2, 3. I get maybe tertiary education. Okay, what do we want tertiary education? We want to ensure that we have enterprises or to move towards an enterprise-based economy. So we're decentralizing. We're going to try and decentralize the economy by involving, by meeting more entrepreneurship in this way, and this way, and this way. This is the budget.
What should be learnings and outcomes from this budget?
What could be budget? I'm the Minister of Finance. In my hand, I have a budget speech.
Yeah.
I want to go and deliver it. Well, it has 3 pages, 120 pages. I want to make it more appealing
To the youth.
to the youth. How will we do that?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, simplify like she said. I mean, I think part of the reasons the youth are not interested or don't show interest. One of the things they don't understand when it comes to the budget is the formula of how the budget is made. Right? We need to make them understand that by each one what you in to create this budget. Right? Simplification of the language and all of that. Right? Because it's not that they are not interested. They just don't understand. You cannot expect someone to participate in something that they don't fully understand. Right? Some people are having macroeconomics and microeconomics. People don't know what that is. At least try and explain to them what that is. Okay.
So simply, I think that way
Yes.
is the key.
So since it is the outreach application, whatever. It's,
Yeah, sure. I know. At least do something. Anything that you need, that you are part of, will capture that one. The good is here of should understand the simplicity, how you anything else that you need to take it out, or we need to add. There's ownership.
Like most running for like that was a over for more way about the barriers run now, should have been there with a low way. And I may monad. You said to see look like a kebata is a reporter for me. So reporter for me. Ray, one over the good at the whole process. So I think the reason why young people are uninvested is because there is a significant lack of connection.
Yeah. Yes. Something we know.
So I have to be 2 weeks in advance. Yeah. Maintaining. Next month.
Ownership. Oh, Illusion. Illusion over. Okay, but I like that one.
Yeah.
Ownership. Ownership throughout all the processes.
When actually got probably these are consultations just to tell us what you are going to do. Those are not consultations. The consultations what the law and what I'm doing. If we
Like Yaka similar guys. I think like a second similar guys.
Yes.
Probably next month it will be straight. A similar process. Let's be part and parcel of it. Hence, handhold all the way. John, another next.
But I think another thing is, it might not be creating ones just as a civil society or maybe the youth. What we could possibly do is podcast and find a way in which we can relate well with that. For example, BMIC will be given a chance to do an openings remark or closing remark, right? Yes. Yes. And I come over and foreign minister are the last directive model like a magic. Small like that before the yeah, it's a more diplomatic and more easier way to do it for us. To say, well, even where the person or there's a likelihood of engagement, like movie, or there is a picture that you painted that you are engaging with. Because what was said last in 2024 by the youth, it was just like this. Next year, we don't address what was suggested last year. We get it from another suggestions. So we want just to say, okay, well, at least let's recap from the last pizza we had. And all other forums that we find spaces in, that will be the best way to go about it. Let's do follow-ups and monitor what we suggest, like if it's implemented or if it's rejected, release it. To know we rejected that one. Yes. So I think we should find a way in which we could get to the podium. BMIC culture there. How about this other one? I should have that. How about you are use of that's
Good people, John. I think I've overstayed my welcome. Let's see. last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've overstayed my welcome. So let me just wrap with the last recommendation. Then I'm going to almost 1 o'clock based on my watch and the observation in the room. Last one talks about what? Say, the last one talks about what?
About the budget processes.
Ensure formal youth representation in budget process. Can someone break down that for me? From what I say to me, Ma, the more, what to set up a join. Yeah, cool. Help me that.
I believe for the recommendation, the keyword is formal. And if being formal means that it carries weight. I'm not sure if using the word legal binding is proper, but yes, that's what it means. That's why we have an establishing National Youth Budget Advisory Council as a recommendation, because then it's visible and it carries weight in institutions like Parliament. So if we have these types of establishments or institutions, these councils, then we're also able to hold the relevant institution accountable when recommendations from your name, Youth Budgetary Advisory Council are not taken into consideration.
Remove me again. There should be some deliberate effort to recognize youth as integral partners. And then also when some structures where they need to be engaged in the physical space. Anything to add, subtract from this recommendation? This was done in this year, February. Does it still stands? Can I still get it better? Last comment. Is your hand up? Please shoot.
I get the key feeling for it's just a perspective on my own. That sometimes when we put you from certain platforms and we are not capacitating them, or basically setting them up for failure, and then they get there and then they become buddies with people in power, and then now here we are. So that needs to be seen. There needs to be somewhat government involving youth representation, but it should come also with that. Is an independent body that listens to people, to people, and people with mind. One that they're very enticing when it comes to money. So, yeah. Hey. Finally, youth council,
Youth parliament. What did you mean? Wait. Let me take the last comment, then I can
Considering Romi's remark, which is very accurate, my concern would then be how can we establish such a physical institution where it's just youth without having it be established by an act of parliament? Because for me, I realize that the only way to have something legal and legal binding in this country is when it is established through an act of parliament. Otherwise, parliament will recognize it, authorities will not recognize it. So how do can we establish such a council or such a physical platform without mandating Parliament to establish it?
I think we can go through. We don't need to establish something different. But if, for example, there is a youth council, which is, I know, mandated by Parliament and recognized by other authorities, I think it would be the best channel to go through to use some or to advance some of this. I don't know whether the youth council buys into this, but ideally it would be the best channel, I think, to go through.
I think that's together with the youth committee. I think that's what
What do you
but
ask is who?
at BNYC, I'm the vice chair. Hey, you're talking to me. But what I wanted to say to the although I agree entirely, I just want to caution specifically in terms of the wording when we put it into the recommendations that we need to be very careful about positioning youth as a demographic that needs to be supported and because that increases the cost of participation. But even aside from vulnerability, but it increases the cost of participation. So if bringing in like our senior young people doesn't require capacity building and bringing in another young person does. So also we need to consider how the framing looks like, right? Because there are young people who are technically capable for those specific things.
Yes.
All young people are capable of all things. So I think what we need to do is create transparent processes for selection into these platforms so that the right young people can get into those spaces.
I need voting.
I mean, voting too, but
Let's not get, let's not violate.
but for the specific.
But I understand only.
But to his point, did the National Youth Council, you're asking if they are aware. I mean, I've been here, so yes, we are aware. Right? And in terms of endorsement, I think making about what type of facilitation is necessary or possible.
Yeah.
Maybe on that note, when I
I make a move for you.
Joe, sorry,
Talking to the show, I said, I'm going you're not one. Good people, this is how I will go. What I think will provide for you will do is, I think this afternoon we will consolidate all these comments and inputs for finalization. Like I said, probably by tomorrow, Thursday, it will be final, and then we go for picture. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
I want to about because we have had a conversation of the studies we exactly how we can that's what information and I think some of this conversations really build on some early recommendations that working together some of these recommendations fit into what we want to establish. Consolidate and position.
Yeah, I think also because I think what we can do is we can facilitate probably and make a presentation to the board so that they can also champion it and take it forward. I think we can do some things.
All right, thank you very much. That helps for a little bit. Before John at closing remarks, I have two announcements. I need two. I would like to discuss shortly. Another announcement globally, before the summer, I know one of the two Sunday, again. I think we can be able to facilitate that for line chain. So I think John will touch on that, but basically what is the experience on here is that we will sit amongst ourselves, John, the YTJN stroke team, be aggressive. You are welcome to join. Like I can be have been in the process of formulating a technical meeting. So we're going to be consolidating your recommendations, and then tomorrow will be taken them to printing. Dissemination will start on Friday. So we will try by all means also to do infographics so that some of the recommendations did not necessarily John, I'll be handing over to you to come and close the meeting.
Last one. You need a Johnny. All right. How we create a nice one?
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the input. I should say the conversation, though sometimes get lost, but I think I got most of the points. I've also been making some notes. So once again, thank you very much. And as Kelly said, we are going to improve on this in light of the discussion we've had today and make it better. It's not the end of it. I know you could have forgotten something may come up, something bad may come up later on, and it is necessary to include it here. Although we are going to pray it, we want to make it a working document. Because we know there are a lot of dynamics, a lot of things come here, and a lot of changes which happen here and there. So we shall keep it as a working document, but of course, in the meantime, we shall be sharing whatever we have. The whole aim is that we are able at least to influence the budget size for the coming one. To have, if we can have some of these recommendations reflected in the next budget cycle, I think it would be a good result for us, and it would be important to our advocacy. So for me, just gratitude for you for coming here, for the input, and also for those who have committed to work together, please. Let us work together. It's all for the benefit of young people. At the end of the day, young people also win, but also even other people win. Of course, most important is the young people. So I would invite you once again, let us work together, let us collaborate, let us make this thing here happen. Yeah, I think from me actually, which I don't know whether it is anything else, but I think I'll leave that to King to handle. Thank you.
Yes.
Enjoy your lunch.
There.
We meet when? We meet here after lunch. Just meet downstairs. Think about it. After lunch, then you just meet there.
We meet here, right?
Yeah, we meet here.
We're here. Downstairs. Is there a room? Yes, by the.
We just sit somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's in the
In a meeting.
In a meeting.
So we took our staff and lunch, we just continue sitting there. I guess.
Hey, yeah, we take to be like two phone though.
I'm playing this time.
Where's the register? Everything that. Good people. And we are
Hi.
Nobody's answering me. Let's go now. Let's go.
Take a good photo.
Yeah, where? Downstairs or here?
I don't know. We go down. The camera guys. Up there.
Yeah, we were done.
Where's he?
Yeah.